Kia ora ladies and gentlemen, my name is Max, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be about the 75 players that are in the mix for selection for the 2025 British and Irish Lions tour to be head coached by Andy Farrell. Farrell did mention to the press that about 75 to 76 players will be in the mix for this tour. And to get a grasp of who could be the final squad, I've drawn up who these 75 to 76 players might be, though I did end up tallying 84 of my own potential picks, just so I can make sure I haven't forgotten about any wildcards that Andy Farrell may select. I don't want the intro to be too long, so here's the 4 tiers I've created for this video. The first one is first choice players who I think for certain will be on the tour. The next one says its name in its own. Then we have unlikely. I think these guys are going to be in the mix, but ultimately they're either lacking form or lacking cohesion with players I think are more likely to be selected. Now we also have a slim chance category for players who are very, very unlikely to get into the tour. This is essentially a category for very good players who just do not tick the boxes that I suspect will be the Lions selection criteria. We're not mucking around, we're getting straight into the contenders, and I've got 5 possible contenders for Loosehead prop. As things stand, I think that Andrew Porter is without question going to be starting as the Loosehead prop in the test matches on this tour. I see Ellis Genge and P.S. Schoeman is very likely to go on tour, though poor form in club rugby over the next few weeks may be detrimental to their chances, while Gareth Thomas and Finn Baxter have been in pretty good form. Prop is a position where form is the only criteria that matters at the end of the day, so I think their chances of going on the tour are not as good as Genge and Schoeman's chances. Because of the selection criteria I've talked about in previous videos, it's a very similar situation for Tighthead prop. I've placed all 4 of my contenders in the likely category because it's not quite obvious who will be starting for the Lions. There are no other players in contention, and I think all 4 of these players have just as good a chance as each other to be going on the tour. It's all just going to come down to whether Tyg Furlong, who has been on 2 Lions tours before, can prove himself ready with a lack of game time. Now hooker is where things start to get a bit more spicy because I've extended my list to 6 contenders. As things go, I think Dan Sheehan will obviously be the first choice. Jamie George is very likely as he's been on 2 Lions tours before. Richard Wigglesworth has coached him at England and will trust him for a lot of those decisions to be made, potentially even as a midweek captain. Ronan Kelleher I think has probably got a better chance than Dowie Lake, as he is the most similar replica you can find to Dan Sheehan. Lake is in better form than Kelleher in my opinion, but the issue is Lake has missed a fair few games with injury lately, and he also doesn't have enough cohesion with the other guys who are likely to be going on the tour. Luke Cowan-Dickie and Dave Cherry, though they are very accurate line-out throwers, I see them as players with slim chance, as Jamie George offers the exact same value as these guys, however he has more caps to his name than Cowan-Dickie and Cherry. If George does go down, I think their chances are going to increase and they'll potentially leapfrog Lake in the pecking order. I've got far too many contenders for lock, so we're just going to get straight into this one. David Ribbons I do think is probably a wild card. He's got a very slim chance, as obviously there are so many contenders above here who do fit the selection criteria. Grant Gilchrist, Johnny Gray, Will Rowlands are all big locks who offer a lot of power at set piece. But the issue is I don't think that is what Andy Farrell is going for. I think he is going for locks with a great pair of hands, and Ollie Chesham, Courtney Laws, Ian Henderson and Dafford Jenkins probably aren't as trustworthy with their passing game in comparison to the other guys like a Toje and Byrne, who I think are guaranteed to go on the tour. George Martin's ability to cover blindside flanker I think sees him as a bit more of a contender than Chesham. Joe McCarthy, James Ryan and Ryan Beard I think all have very good chances of going on the tour due to their shared playing minutes with Dan Sheehan and Ronan Kelleher. While Ryan Beard can play as a blindside flanker, if he does go on the tour, he will be going as a lock, due to the selection criteria I suspect there will be for the flankers. Scott Cummings as well, he did miss the Six Nations. I know guys, but if Andy Farrell wants link men to be his locks, Scott Cummings is the best Scottish option for this job, therefore I have him as the only Scotsman in the likely category. Courtney Lawes I would have as a likely player to go on this tour, but the issue is playing Pro Day Tour and losing his handling as he's getting older, that is going to count against him. Loose forwards is another area with far too many contenders, or back row as my fans will be suggesting we should call them. Tom Curry will without question be starting at blind side flanker. While he prefers to play as an open side, the selection criteria of kick chasers running to win ball back after the halfback box kicks means Tom Curry will essentially serve as an extra open side, but with 6 on his back. Caelan Doris being a contender for captain is obviously a shoo-in for the tour as well. I have a lot of players as likely selections, Jack Willis being one of them. The only thing that really I think will stop Jack Willis is the fact that he plays for Toulouse and he's in a position with a lot of competition. Tom Curry's twin brother Ben is also a contender, as is Ben Earl, as they are both very, very good at the kick chase that Richard Wigglesworth has been coaching them for. Jack Conan, having gone on a Lions tour before, and with Peter O'Mahony retired, is probably the best replica they're going to find of Caelan Doris. Jamie Ritchie is the biggest winner without question for the selection criteria of 2 open side flankers, so of the Scottish options I think he's probably the highest likelihood to go. Rory Darge, being a very similar player to the Curry brothers and Earl, I think has a very good chance too, as does Jack Morgan. The only thing that is in Jack Morgan's way though is his nationality. Wales haven't been winning a lot, so that's why he's the only Welshman in the likely category. All the guys in the unlikely category, they would normally be in the slim chance category, as I just don't think these guys fit the selection criteria. Fagerson and Cunningham South, As for Dempsey, he is under a bit of an injury cloud, whereas Faletau, being Welsh, it's just definitely not good for him. If Faletau is selected, I will have tears in my eyes. I will be crying over the fact that this man just keeps getting up after all these injuries. Henry Pollock, form of his life, could be a great guy for the kick chasing, but his inexperience just simply puts him in the slim chance category. As we go into the back line, scrum halves are a fairly obvious selection point as well. Conor Murray is unlikely because of the selection criteria, but hey, it's okay. He is still playing, he's not retiring like Peter O'Mahony and Cian Healy are. Thomas Williams, excellent player, but at the end of his career right now, he is starting to get too used to losing and probably isn't a good enough box kicker for the selection criteria. Alex Mitchell, Ben White and George Horn are probably the 3 scrum halves from the Six Nations who can do their best imitation of Jamison Gibson Park, who will be guaranteed to go on the tour. Mitchell in particular having been coached by Richard Wigglesworth at England. The reason I say George Horn is because he adds a lot of the attacking flair that Jamison Gibson Park can show off when he's running support lines. Of all the second choice scrum halves out there in the Six Nations, George Horn definitely has the best chance of them. And I'm sure this section over here at Fly Half is going to get the dislike ratio up. I do have 7 contenders, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of rage in the comment section over this. There is no clear standout fly half based on form in the Six Nations right now. From what I've seen, Sam Prendergast cannot handle the pressure. From what I've seen, Steve Borthwick just simply is not understanding enough to know what value Marcus Smith will offer from 10 throughout the full 80. And while Finn Russell and Gareth Anscombe are both very experienced players, they do not tick the boxes that I have on screen that will be there as selection criteria. They're both too used to losing, and they are not the kind of guys who you can imagine doing the things you see in these pictures right here. That is the reason I see Owen Farrell in the likely category. While Farrell has been injured, the fact that Johnny Sexton will be an assistant coach and the fact that his father will be the head coach gives him a great shout for the tour. If any number 10 can come from another league, be absent from Test rugby for 2 years, it is going to be this guy. However, those injury woes mean I just don't see his chances as certain anymore. I do not think he was going to be the captain if he is selected for the tour. If Farrell does go down, Sam Prendergast is probably going to be starting at 10 for the simple fact that he is starting all the time at Leinster and shares lots of cohesion with other members of the spine. Personally, I don't rate Prendergast at all, but the fact that he has this share experience makes him a key contender, and if Farrell does go down, expects Finn Smith, who is probably the closest replica of him, to get called into the squad. I do feel incredibly sorry for George Ford and Jack Crowley, who are excellent game managers, but I just don't think they've had enough game time in international rugby as of late to do what Farrell will be able to do. We're now into the midfield, and I do have another wild card to present to you guys. There are lots of contenders, and Gary Ringrose of these contenders, though, is the only one who I think has a sure chance of going on this tour. Bundy Aki and Robbie Henshaw are both very likely to go on the tour, because not only do they have great cohesion with each other, but they both have great cohesion with Ringrose. I suspect that due to the selection criteria, if Henshaw goes on the tour, he will be given the designated role as jersey number 23. If there's any back who's going to get selected based on form outside of the outside backs, I think Tom Jordan is going to be your guy. While he does somewhat stink of a Geography 6 type player, Tom Jordan ticks a lot of those selection boxes a fair bit, and I don't think there's any more things he could have done to build his case. Hugh Jones, who I think is extremely likely to get selected, his midfield partner Sione Tuipoloshu is in a race against time, and so if Tuipoloshu can build his form over the coming weeks and coming months, I do think Tuipoloshu will leapfrog Tom Jordan. And Sione Tuipoloshu there, sorry guys, I did think before his injury was in that first choice category. We're just going to have to see how things played out, because at the end of the day, Jordan and Tuipoloshu are in direct competition with each other. The guys who I see as having a slim chance is just for the simple fact that they're not a clear combination favourite of somebody in the likely category. With Ollie Lawrence, who I think would have been likely out of contention, I just don't see much of a chance for Joe Marchant now at Racing 92, and Henry Slade, his usual midfield partner for England. Max Llewellyn, great player as well, but ultimately doesn't fit the selection criteria that would require him to have a lot of a good distribution and kicking game. There's a heck of a lot of contenders for the outside backs too. 5 from England, 4 from Ireland, 3 from Wales, 3 from Scotland. Hugo Keenan, being a regular starter for both the Irish and for Leinster, is the only guaranteed pick over here, because at the end of the day, form will determine the other outside backs to join Keenan on this tour. Tommy Freeman and Henry Arundel are probably the guys who fit the kick chase qualities best. You can have one of those guys on the wing and an open side / blindside flanker on the other wing. James Lowe and Matt Hansen will definitely be shout-outs because of their aerial ability that Andrew Goodman likes very much. Darcy Graham, what a freak, he's always going to be in this likely category. Blair Kinghorn, man, he deserves to be on this tour. The one thing that is stopping him from being in the first choice category though is the fact that he plays for Toulouse. If he was playing for an English club, Scottish club or a Welsh club, yeah, he would be in the first choice category, but it's just going to come down to whether they can get him released from that club. We get to the unlikely category, and I'm hoping that Duhan van der Merwe won't be ruled out of the tour due to injury, as Emmanuel Faye-Waboso of England already has. Van der Merwe is a player that I saw in the likely category just last week, but the fact that he's now got injured means he will be in a race against time, therefore I have him in the unlikely category. He ticks lots of the selection boxes, but whether he makes the tour or not, it's just going to come down to whether he's injured or not. Freddie Stewart is in a similar case to Van der Merwe, because simply put, he's just not had enough game time for England. Ticks the boxes, but lacks the game time. Outside backs, unlike fly half, is very competitive. That's why I'm counting this criteria against Stewart, but not against Owen Farrell. There's a gap in the market at fly half, and there is never a gap in the market for outside backs. Liam Murray, he will be the bolter if he goes on this tour. I just don't think he ticks enough of the selection criteria boxes, but with the form he is in, I'm just in a mindset of never say never to the selection of this absolute freak I cannot praise Blair Murray enough because he is unbelievably good. Ollie Slightholme is very good, but I just don't see his chances as being too high. Jimmy O'Brien I think is a good player for versatility, but not quite the aerial dynamics that I think Andrew Goodman is going to like. Josh Adams and Liam Williams, very, very experienced players, but they're Welsh, they're in poor form, and don't tick the boxes. This video's been very long. I'm not going to have much of an outro, so as I say, thank you to you guys all for watching. Just remember to share some of your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll see you for the next video. Cheers, team.